Hello and welcome to Satellites 56. My name's Charles and this is Mark chapter 6 in 2 minutes. Chapter 6 begins with Jesus returning to his hometown in Nazareth, but when he arrives, he finds that everyone rejects him and he's unable to perform any miracles whilst he is there, except, just a few casual healings here and there. He finds their lack of faith disturbing. Jesus then decides to send out his disciples into pairs to drive out evil spirits, telling them to take nothing with them. They do so, casting out evil spirits left, right and centre, and, as they do so, word spreads with many people asking the question, who is this Jesus? Some argue he is Elijah, a prophet from the Old Testament. Others argue other prophets. King Herod, no, not that one from the Christmas story, his son, there we go. King Herod panics as he thinks Jesus could be John the Baptist come back to life. Cue flashback to John the Baptist's tragic death. I told you not to lose your head over what happens to him. Anyway, the disciples return from the mission like excited puppies and tell Jesus everything they have done, but a large crowd begins to form around them, so Jesus suggests they go to a quiet place to relax, so they get in a boat and set off to find somewhere. But the crowd know where they are going and run ahead of them, so when Jesus gets out of the boat, he is greeted by this large crowd. He takes pity on them and teaches them many things. After a while, Jesus asks the disciples to feed the crowd. They are shocked. There's about 5,000 men, let alone the women and the children. It'd cost a fortune. But Jesus asks what food they already have. 2 loaves and 5 fish is the reply. Jesus tells the disciples to split the crowd into smaller groups. He gives thanks to God for the food and hands it to his disciples to distribute. To their surprise, everyone is fed, with leftovers to spare. Straight after, Jesus tells his disciples to go to the other side of the lake, whilst he goes to find a place to pray on his own. His disciples take their boat and row across the lake. As they row, they see a mysterious figure walking on the water towards them. They panic, but it turns out to be Jesus, who tells them not to be afraid. They're confused as they still don't understand who Jesus is. They arrive in a new place and Jesus is immediately thrown back into healing large crowds of sick people. A lot happens in Mark 6, but I am just going to pick out 3 things which I think are really important. Number 1. When Jesus goes back to his hometown of Nazareth, he finds that he can't do any miracles there. He finds their lack of faith disturbing. In other words, they don't believe who he says he is. They don't believe that he could be anything special because, well, they've seen him grow up and they know his mum and they know his brothers and his sisters and his dad. And that could be quite challenging because it means that if no one has faith, then miracles can't happen. But that's not necessarily true because Jesus can still heal people, though it says that although he couldn't perform miracles, he was able to heal a couple of people. So therefore, it's not that with no faith means no miracles, but it does mean that the job is harder. And it also means that there's no super miracles, there's no changing water into wine, there's no walking on water, there's no really big miraculous healings. Number 2, teamwork. Jesus relies on his disciples being in pairs when they go off and do what he does. He gives them permission to go off and drive out spirits, and they do so in pairs. And why is it important that they're in pairs? Well, there is this idea of teamwork. God loves it when we're working as a team, when we're working together, not just on our own. There's also this idea of being accountable, so holding each other responsible for what goes on, as well as having someone else to witness, to see the miracles that happen, so that you don't just come back to people and say, I did this miracle, and everyone's like, did you though? Having someone else who's there going, no, I saw it, I was with them and I saw it and it happened and it was amazing. Point number 3. I'm going to hand this one over to my friend, Professor Noatal, who we haven't seen for a couple of weeks, but here we go. Professor Noatal, take it away. Thank you, Charles. So, the Jewish priests, when giving thanks to God, would look down and they would give their thanks and they'd say, thank you, God, for this food, or whatever it is that they're saying thank you for. They'd look down because they are not worthy to look up at God, because they are not as holy as God. But Jesus, when giving thanks for the bread and the fish in the feeding of the 5,000, looks up at God. It's a small gesture, but it's a big meaning. It suggests that Jesus sees himself as equal to God. He has nothing to be ashamed of. He is as holy as God. And he did that in front of over 5,000 people. It's a big statement to make.
Now we'll find out later down the line that Jesus claims to be the Son of God. Now I may be back next week to give you more historical context, but who knows, because I've been axed for the past 2 weeks, so maybe I won't be. Charles, can you give me any clarification about that? No, I don't think so. Yeah, sorry about that. Anyway, I think it's really amazing that Jesus is the Son of God. Like, he shows it in his actions. And this is where we see the disciples at the end, they don't understand who Jesus is still. They don't understand that Jesus is the Son of God. They don't understand that Jesus is God in human form. That's who Jesus says he is. That's how his actions come across. That's the words that he will say later on. Jesus claims that he is the Son of God. Join us next week when we'll be looking at Mark chapter 7. Until then, bye.